Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Unlimited Horizons Lecture Series. I'm going to give a very brief description of our next speaker, who, by the way, is our keynote speaker for the weekend, and this is her second lecture of the weekend. Sherry Wilde, The Esoteric Life of a Volunteer. Sherry has had an overwhelming amount of physical contact with beings from an alternate reality and has worked her way through the layers of disbelief, fear, confusion, and ridicule. In this lecture, she shares highlights and intimate details of that journey and talks about the differences between being an abductee and a volunteer. So without further ado, Miss Sherry Wilde, thank you.
Sorry, forgot about that. Testing. You can hear me okay? Right there. Hi, everybody. Hi. Familiar faces again. Okay. So I dressed warmer today, so I won't shake so much. I froze yesterday. So this is the esoteric nature of being a volunteer. This is a little bit different than what we talked about yesterday. If you were here yesterday, I shared my story of what it felt like to have my life totally torn apart when I came into the realization of being an abductee, what they call an abductee, and all that is involved in coming to terms with that. So that awakening happened for me in 1989 when I underwent hypnosis. And it's been quite a journey since then. So I'm going to pick up kind of where I left off, and I just kind of want to do a disclaimer. I want to say that this is my story, it's my perspective, and that if it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. Just take from it whatever. If there's anything of value there at all, that's great. If not, then that's okay too. So I'm just going to share what my conclusions are and my beliefs on what's going on with the whole abduction phenomenon. So I'm going to see if I can get this thing to work. Nope. Going to give you the description of an abductee again, because it's important, because I'm going to compare it. I'm going to step away from this description because being an abductee means that you are in the role of a victim. So I'll just recap really briefly for those who were not here yesterday that in 1968, when I was 17 years old, I had 2 hours of missing time, okay? And then 20 years later, I became obsessed with that event, having not ever looked into it and not having ever tried to figure out what had happened to me. And so it just so happened at the time that I was obsessed with the idea, we were having a UFO flap in my community, a big one, biggest in the world. Went on for some time. And Don Schmidt, the co-director of the Center for UFO Studies, came up to investigate it. And we met, and eventually he convinced me to be regressed. And it took a lot of talking on his part to convince me of that. So under hypnosis, I relived my experience from when I was age 17 and had 2 hours of missing time. And as a result of that, my whole world was blown apart. I haven't been the same since, It just changes everything. And so my marriage came undone, and everything, it changed who I was. It changed my perspective of life completely. So being an abductee didn't feel very good to me. And I struggled with it because I had a level. And that's one thing, we all have these different levels of awareness within us. And I seem to be able to move through these different levels. I don't know how it is for you, but I have a level of awareness that's here, like a three-dimensional world level of awareness. It's what society or what we're told is we're supposed to believe. And then you have another level up here, which actually resonates more with your heart, and you have a knowingness about it, and you know it's the truth. So I had a level there where being a victim didn't feel right to me. It just didn't feel right. It was an uncomfortable place to be, but it was more than that. It just didn't resonate as being the truth. So I went on a search to find out the truth of what this was all about and to find out why I felt that way. And it took me a long time to figure it out. But what I learned, and this is pretty recent that I learned this, so I'm going to share with you. I learned that there cannot be a perpetrator if there is not a victim. It's the same energy. And I think I said this yesterday. It's the same energy. There's no difference between the tormentor and the tormented. It's just different sides of the same coin. And I teach a Course in Miracles class, and some of that is taught in the Course in Miracles. And when we get to this lesson, I always come up against the same thing. The people always say, well, wait a minute, Sherry. How about that little girl that was in the news last week that got abducted and tortured, maybe raped and killed? Are you telling me that she's not a victim? As hard as it is to believe, that's what I'm saying. It's absolutely true, because you have to let go of that idea that we're victims if we are going to go where Don just got done telling us we're going to go, which is into the higher frequencies and into the higher dimensions, into Christ consciousness. If we are going to evolve as a species on this planet, we have to let go of our littleness and our ideas about being a victim. If you do not accept the role of victim, you will not be a victim. If there is not a victim, there will not be a tormentor or a perpetrator. Now, these decisions are made on a soul level, but they're coming from a place of guilt. The soul makes this decision usually because it feels guilty, sometimes because it's been told that it needs to have this experience in order to pay back some karma or something. None of that is true. The only time that it makes sense to have that experience is just 'cause. Just 'cause. Your soul wants to have experiences just 'cause. Because it knows that it can have any experience it wants. And when you're a soul and you know the truth of who you know that you are love and light and pure joy, and that in truth nothing can harm you. It doesn't seem so bad to say, I wonder what it would feel like to be a 6-year-old girl, to be abducted and tortured and da-da-da-da. As unbelievable as that is true. Sometimes that soul decides to play that role in order to teach those around it, part of its soul family, so that it can be a catalyst for their awakening. Not because it's a sacrifice. That would not be correct either. But again, just because when you're a soul, you decide to have some experiences that when you come into form, I can relate to this. You make some decisions to when you're in spirit, to come into form and have them. And then when you're in form, you go, what the hell was I thinking? I know that I signed on for this. There's nothing that happens to you. There's nothing that's happening to you right now in your life that you have not invited. You invited it first. That's why it's there. So it's important. I hope everyone gets that, because that's such an important part of being on this planet and transforming it, is letting go of the idea of being a victim. So I'm going to make some assumptions here. I'm going to assume that everybody in this room is in agreement that we are not alone. Pretty much everybody here, I think, understands that. We are not alone in the universe, definitely. The second assumption I'm going to make is that if we're not alone, you don't have a very hard time understanding or accepting the fact that we can communicate and connect with what I think of as our star family or our cosmic family. We all have the ability to communicate with our extended family. It's a matter of prioritizing. If it's important enough to you, you'll do it. You'll take the time to learn to do it through meditation and through intention. So I have communication and connection with what we call the ETs. I don't call them that. They're my guys. They live in a different dimension, but they're also here. If there's anybody who's psychic here, by the way, this is George. He's my guide. and he's with me all the time. I've had people after I give talks come up to me and they're freaked out because they see George standing back there very protectively with his arm around me. And sometimes there's a couple little dudes running around up here too, little ETs. So if you're seeing them, don't let it freak you out, because in truth, we're surrounded by dimensions and worlds and beings that we, with our limited senses, cannot see. Yeah, I'm going to get to that, I hope I get to that later. So right now I'm going to go back to the idea of being a volunteer as compared to being an abductee. You see the difference between the two? An abductee, I'm a victim. A volunteer. And if you were here yesterday, you heard how I came to the awareness that I was a volunteer. I asked my guys. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to do that before I realize I just have to ask whenever I have a question. And that's true for all of us also. I forget to ask. Every time I ask a question, I get an answer. We all do. Always. Every time you ask, you get an answer. Whether you hear it or not is a different thing. That takes practice. So when I asked why have I had so much contact? Why has this gone on in my life to such an extent that I'm more there than here? And they pulled back a curtain and they showed me. They called me a participant in a program. And I learned this when I was walking out in the desert in Tucson. And I was a participant in a program. I volunteered to come here. And I'll recap that again, 1945, the atomic blast. And it changed everything. Everything changed. Planet Earth was no longer willing to wait for her children to awaken. She was moving on. And those of us who were aware of planet Earth and the plight of humanity that's how I remember recalling it. It was the plight of humanity on planet Earth. Planet Earth was a quarantine planet. It was an imprisoned planet. It was a sad story planet. A lot of things had happened here that were unfortunate, but again, they were just experiences. In 1947, the linear year 47, is when the call went out for volunteers. Someone, and I can't tell you who, but someone came up with the idea that maybe we could still save humanity on planet Earth. If humanity did not ascend with Gaia into the fifth dimension, here's what my guys told me. Those souls would go back to source and be recalibrated and start their journey all over again. Or they would just be transferred to another three-dimensional planet and continue their journey. It depends on what level where they were at in their awakening process. But those who were really, really tortured souls and had been stuck in a low frequency for a long time, they needed to be what they called recalibrated. So when the call went out, I was hanging out as a etheric being in a mid-sixth dimensional realm. And along with millions of others, I volunteered to come to planet Earth and take on form. So I spent a couple years of linear time. There, time doesn't exist, but there was time spent. You have to go through a process before you can come to planet Earth. You all did the same thing. Maybe some of you remember it. You had to appear before the council. You had to get approval. You had to argue your case, why you should be one who is allowed to come onto planet Earth. Your guides and your angels had to support you in this. And you had to prove that of all the souls that wanted to come here at this particular time during this ascension process, that you were one of the ones who should be allowed to do that. So I got my marching orders, and I picked the timeline that I wanted to come in on. I was really pleased with myself. It was kind of a joke, because Joshua, who we knew is Jesus, the Christ, is up there working on behalf of planet Earth. And it was kind of funny. I know him from being out there, which a lot of people can take offense to that, but it is what it is. And I came in on December 25th, and it was kind of a little in honor of him, but it was also kind of a little joke. Because the energy coming in at that time, December 25th, 1950, at that particular time that I chose, gave me the characteristics and the gifts that I would need to do the job that I came here to do. I was born as a Capricorn through and through, very pragmatic and very level-headed, very down-to-earth, the last person you would ever think to claim being an abductee. That was the plan. I was a pretty well-respected business person. I was very successful. I had made large gobs of money, and I lived a great life. Part of what I decided when I came in here was that I wanted to ride the roller coaster of life in this illusionary world. I didn't want to come onto this world and just sit in the teacups and go around in circles. You know, when you go to the amusement park, round in circles, how boring is that? I wanted to ride the biggest, baddest, fastest roller coaster there was. And so that's the life I've had. And I've enjoyed it because I've got this one time here. And I wanted to make the most of it. So I climbed the mountain, and then I fell off of it. And I climbed it again, and then I fell off it again. I've been knocked down more times. My daughter used to say to me that I was like Bozo the clown. I don't know if you remember those little, you punch them in the nose and it squawks and it goes down, but then it pops back up. It's got that stupid clown face smiling at you, grinning. She said, that's what you are, Mom. You get knocked down and you come back up grinning. And I can't figure out if you're extremely wise or just really stupid. But, you know, I said I brought in special gifts, and I feel like I did. One of the gifts that I granted myself is the gift of not caring what other people think of me. That has served me so well, I cannot tell you, because I've observed what it's like for people who define who they are by others' opinions of them. And I had a small sampling of it. Like I do everything. I don't get to go scot-free on anything. But I had a small sampling of that when I was about 16. And I had a crush on this upperclassman. He was really cute. And I wanted him to notice me. And so I knew what it was like to want attention like that. And to, you know, and so I had a little, and that was terrible. That was horrible to have that feeling of like you needed validation. Yeah. Thank God I don't have that. But I see it and observe it in not just my children, but in a lot of people, a lot of my friends. And it's got to be a torturous way to live. It's got to be really difficult. And I don't know how rampant that is or how deep it flows, but it seems like it's something that's fairly common with people. So I was born without that, thank God. I was born fearless. Not that I'm not afraid of snakes, but in all honesty, when I was about 5 years old, I was standing on a snake. It was curled up in the corner of the yard, and my mother let out a scream, and I said, what? And I looked down, and the rattler was going, and I was standing right in the middle of it with both my bare feet. And I was fascinated by it. I had no fear. So I've had protection, special protection, my whole life. I could stand up here for hours and tell you all these cool stories. Some of them are in the book. But I think it's because I'm a little bit careless. And because I do want to experience everything that life has to offer. So I tend to drive a little too fast. I tend to ski like a crazy woman. I tend to take chances and do things that maybe I shouldn't be doing. But maybe there's a part of me that knows that I'm protected. And I am. They take really good care of me, my guys. So, I better pay attention to my notes here. So my life has been probably different than what is normal, but it does not make me special or better or worse or less. It's just different, I think. There are other volunteers on this planet, some who are doing way more than what I'm doing. I'm just doing my own little thing over here, talking to whoever will listen. And I'm not sure how long I'll even keep doing that. But those of us who came in as volunteers, we have the option of waking up and remembering who we are. So we can tap in to some of those gifts, and we can ask for the assistance. So the other thing that I would say about my life that makes me different is that I do not have free will to the extent that most have. The reason that is because my life was planned to the detail. Everything about it was planned. Before you come onto planet Earth, you choose the time of your birth, based on what characteristics and things that you want in your life and your journey. And then you put out a roadmap. And so you have this roadmap of you want to get from here to here. And depending on your soul's decision, as you probably all know, you can take these little side trips or whatever, so long as you get from here to here. That's your objective. My trip from here to here includes every route that I take. I don't get too many side trips at all. My husband was chosen for me by my guys. Every relationship that I've been in has been chosen for me. Everything. My children, I got to pick the sex, and I got to pick what they look like. But I didn't get anything beyond that. Everything, but it's in collaboration with my guys, so it's like my extended family. So I don't really feel like I've been robbed of anything. So we came onto planet Earth, those of us who are volunteers. Why? Not just because of the atomic bomb and because of that decision, but also we felt that it was important to come in to try to awaken people enough so that they would move past the trap that's been set for you. The planet is an imprisoned planet. Your soul's been stuck here for a while. There's no way for your soul to evolve. Reincarnation is a fairly acceptable belief, and I know that I bought into it for a long time. And it seemed to make sense. You reincarnate, and each time you come back, you try to do a little better, and you try to make amends, and you try to learn more, and you try to do better and better. And eventually you can make your way back to God or heaven or paradise or up to the next level. The truth of that is that it's a pretty interesting game, and it's probably been fun to play somewhat, but maybe not, because between lives where you go, you're still stuck in this realm, in this earth. And you review your life, and you say, I didn't do that quite right. And someone's there, and they're also guiding you, and they're saying, you need to go back. Try to do better. You need to learn more about love, or you need to learn more about how to manage your finances or whatever. I do not know. I had a psychic tell me that once, and I have no idea what managing my